Okay, so then this is going to be a very basic introduction to ALMA for those of you who are, yeah, like not very familiar. And even if you're a little bit familiar, you may find some things interesting, or things, curiosities that probably you didn't know about the telescope. And this is, well, this part of the presentation is mainly aimed to get you more familiar with the details of this particular interferometer. Sebastian already gave an introduction to the general aspect of interferometry, but then this will focus on ALMA, and several of the things that I'm going to present here are based on information that is in this document, which is called the ALMA, in this case, the Cycle 10 Technical Handbook. It's a document that contains a lot of information on ALMA, and that you can download from for example, the ALMA Science portal. You go to the documentation tab there, and then there are several documents. There's an ALMA Proposers Guide, Users Policies, etc., etc., and there is the ALMA Technical Handbook, and then it has it's a couple of hundred pages document with all kinds of information about the telescope. So then, well, just to give you an introduction on the general aspects. So, well, ALMA, as you know, it is in the southern hemisphere. It's in Chile, in the Shinantur Plateau at 5,000 meters above sea level, and it is close to this small town called San Pedro de Atacama. And then, well, it's in the border with Bolivia, and then you can actually see this volcano Licancabur from as it is seen from San Pedro, and as it is seen from the plateau, the Shinantur Plateau, and well, one thing that I in the map that you see on the left, you can see the locations of other observatories. For example, the VLT, which is closer to Antofagasta, and then La Silla Observatory, which is closer to La Serena. And well, I put them there because if one has never visited down there in Chile, one may think or imagine that all those telescopes that we hear about that are in Chile are like next to each other, but actually they're fairly separated from one each other, distributed across Chile. And well, here you see a Google view of the Shinantur Plateau at 5,000 meters. And this is the place where the antennas are located. There are the antenna pads that you see there, and the antennas are sitting on those pads. And also at this location, 5,000 meters above sea level, we also have the Arrays Operation Site building, which contains the ALMA correlator. And then here you see both correlators. One is the correlator for what we call the main array, and the other is for the ALMA, the Atacama Compact Array, which I'm just going to talk about the different telescopes that ALMA contains. And then there is the OSF, the Operations Support Facility buildings, which are at 2,900 meters. So there is a path that connects the operations, the OSF and the high site, and most of the operations and the workshops and the control room are in this location, the OSF. Excuse me. And And so then from that location is where the telescope is operated. Although nowadays also it is operated remotely from Santiago. At least the day shifts are done from there. The night shifts are still done from the control room there at the OSF. Also, in this location, we find the residencia, which is the place where the people who go up there to do operations, well, and engineers and many other people related to the operations of the observatory. They sleep there. There is a dining room, swimming pool, resting area, laundry room, etc., etc. So, well, several things happen there. So then, given the ALMA location, which is it has a oh, Sebastian, can you be checking if there are people trying to connect?
I'm doing it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So then I was saying that given the location with the latitude of -23, then well, as you probably guess, the sources that can be observed better with ALMA are sources that are in the southern sky, but actually it can observe well sources as north as I mean theoretically as north as those with the declination of +47, which would mean that they are very, very low in the horizon. So I mean it's in principle they can be observed, but of course it has some technical difficulties to observe such northern sources. And also other thing is that occurs when one tries to observe either very extremely southern sources or very northern sources is that well, since the antennas have to be looking very close on the horizon, then they would be blocking each other, and then one may have significant problems with so-called shadowing of the antennas. And then, as I was mentioning just a little bit before, that ALMA in reality, it is actually, or I like to think of it as actually 3 telescopes in one. Even though we see here a bunch of antennas, they're not all the same, and they're used for different purposes. We have around like 50 antennas that have a diameter of 12 meters, and they compose what we call the main array, and probably it is the one that most people want to use. It is like the one that provides the highest angular resolution and the highest sensitivity, but as Sebastian already mentioned, I mean, due to the nature of the interferometric technique, well, it needs support from other antennas in order to do a better coverage of the UV plane in the Fourier space. And for that, then there is this other more compact array, which is called the Atacama compact array or the Morita array, and it is composed basically of 12 7-meter antennas. And as you can see them, they're really more packed together, and they are used for giving us points in the Fourier space that are closer together. And actually, ALMA has these other 4 antennas, which are used as total power antennas, as single dish telescopes, and they are their main purpose is to provide us with the zero spacing point in the Fourier space, which would give us the total flux of of the source, as Sebastian already was mentioning. So then, well, those are the different telescopes that comprise, let's say, all of ALMA. And well, I just also wanted to share that well, the antennas, the different antennas, they were built by different the contribution to the telescope was done by, as you know, by these three regions: North America, Europe, and East Asia. And so then we have antennas that come from different regions. That actually is interesting that that just by the appearance one can actually tell, even though the specifications of the antennas are all of the same. In principle, there shouldn't be a difference if the observations are done with one antenna from one region or other region. It is interesting to see that actually they look slightly different physically. You can see the European antennas have these very straight bars holding the secondary mirror, and then well, the North American antennas, and then the Japanese antennas, and they have different codes. So when one is actually working on their data, one can actually see some codes, and then one can actually tell which from which kind of antenna the data came from. And recently also they decided to name the antennas with actual proper names. And if one goes to the web page of the observatory, one can actually see the names of the different antennas and the meanings in different languages, and there are names in Japanese and Spanish and so on. So it's interesting to see that. And those antennas, as Sebastian already mentioned, the telescope, in order to cover different parts of the Fourier space, the antennas have to be moved and separated in order to get different configurations. And the antennas are moved by either of those two transporters. There are two transporters that basically carry the antennas from one path to another, and you can see them there. They move fairly, I mean, one would say that is slow, but actually when one sees them in action, the antennas actually they can move them relatively quickly. And the antennas, well, they have to be located in the different paths with very, very, very accurately. And as you can see here, well, in the plateau, well, there are like these 192 antenna path foundations. And then, well, the idea is, like I said, that is to bring the antennas from one configuration to another more extended, let's say, configuration. And the antennas, they can go from a few hundred meters all the way out to 16 kilometers, the maximum distance between a pair of antennas. And then here you can see, for example, this is a scale of the region. This is 5 kilometers, more or less, on the map. And if you would like to see more or less, or to have an image of how large this area is, because when one sees here when one sees these antennas in the middle of the plateau, in the middle of the desert, one loses a little bit of a perspective of the distances. But then this is the exact same scale, but for example, in the town of Gothenburg here in Sweden. And then this would be the equivalent of in Helsinki, for example, in Finland. So then more or less, you know, how distributed the antennas are. Like, they're really very separated, even though in the pictures we always look at the antennas and they look very close together, but they're very separated. And here, well, this is just the same plot that Sebastian already showed, where we showed the different configurations. There are basically 10 configurations. the configuration 1 is like where the antennas are very, very close together. And then they go as configuration 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on, all the way up to 10, configuration 10, where the antennas, like I said, the maximum distance between two antennas is like around 16 kilometers. And in the web page, for example, in this web page they're using up there in the almascience.eso.org, you can actually see a schedule of the different configurations, what configuration and ALMA is going to be in some particular range of time. For example, right now, we are just finishing this period of maintenance in February. And in March, it will start observing in configuration 1. It gives the minimum and maximum baseline, the beam, the synthesized beam that we will get at some specific frequency, which I think is like around 100 gigahertz or something like that. And then the maximum recoverable scale for that particular configuration, also for the 12-meter array at that particular frequency. And so then you can go there and more or less think about when your observations may be carried out. And well, but Sebastian already spoke a little bit about this on the angular resolution and the maximum recoverable scale. They can be calculated basically from the angular resolution can be calculated in terms of the wavelength and the maximum separation of two antennas. And the maximum recoverable scale can be calculated in terms of the wavelength and the minimum separation of two antennas in one configuration. So, I mean, you don't have really to look at this very these equations, but it's just to tell you more or less on what depends these two parameters. And then, what happens with the different configurations and angular resolution and maximum recoverable scale. But the thing is that if you have very high angular resolution, then you will be able to see those small details like Sebastian was mentioning, but then you lose part of this extended emission as it is seen, for example, there in the configuration 6. And if you go to configuration 1, then you recover this more extended emission, but then you lose angular resolution. And the ideal would be to have actually a combination of both things. So then actually in the ALMA and the technical handbook, page 93, it would give you this big table where it will show you for different bands, different frequencies, what is the angular resolution with in the different configurations and what would be the maximum recoverable scale. And then there you would know more or less that given the frequency that you would like to observe, what configuration would be the ideal for your observations. And that is, and then you can tell more or less when, for example, your observations would be carried out based on the calendar of configurations for the observatory. And in the case that your observations require different arrays, in this case, for example, the Morita array, the Atacama compact array, and even these total power antennas and the 12 the main array and so on, then you would receive data that for each of the different arrays or each of the different in this case, well, either total power and the main array and AC array, and then you would need to actually combine those data in order to get this image that has, let's say, the best of the two worlds. That you would have high angular resolution and you would also have extended emission. The thing is that that data combination is not provided directly by the observatory. You would get from ALMA, you would get the data separately, and then you would need to actually combine it yourself. There are different techniques that at some point we can discuss about. There are even these iTrain videos on this data combination, but the ARC nodes can help you with that. We can help you with the combination of your data. I'm just going to go very quickly on the different the correlator setups, which has to do with yes, how when you are preparing your observations, what kind of things you would have to be taking a look at in terms of frequency setups and so on. As you know, well, these are ALMA. These are the bands that ALMA observes. Actually, right now it is also already observing in band 1, but basically you can see that it covers all kinds of molecules and at different frequencies. But as Sebastian already mentioned, the transmission of the atmosphere, of course, is much better at lower frequencies. But in principle, you can observe almost as high as 1 terahertz. And you can see, well, from that curve, the transmission of the atmosphere. And then, for example, you can observe the different transitions of specific molecules. In this case, one of the most popular molecules is the CO. You can see that you can observe different transitions, which can help you to determine, for example, excitation conditions and so on of the gas. It's just the same plot that Sebastian already mentioned, that you have, of course, you have to have in consideration, you have to have into account that, well, the weather is not always the same and it's not always ideal, but it varies across the year. So the conditions of observations may change depending on the weather. And actually, there is in the proposer's guide, there is information on the fraction of time with some certain values for the water vapor levels at the different times of the year. So then you more or less know when are the best conditions to observe at some certain frequency in some certain configuration. Well, the observations can be done either in spectral mode or they can be done in continuum. So then depending on your science and depending on your scientific goals, you can set up the correlator in order to give you some certain spectral resolution. You can choose very narrow channels with slightly narrower bandwidth, or you can choose slightly wider channels, and then you will also get a slightly wider spectral range or bandwidth in your observations. And you can it's a very flexible a way to set up your observations in order to get the as much as possible in terms of bandwidth and spectral resolution. And well, here it is also good to mention that that soon ALMA will undergo a major upgrade in terms of this, and then you would be able to get a lot of spectral resolution over very large bandwidth. So this is the so-called wideband sensitivity upgrade, and this is going to bring major changes to ALMA. And well, as for those of you who already have proposed for ALMA, you know that, well, in the OT, the observation tools, there are ways of setting your different frequencies, the different spectral windows for different molecules that you want to detect, and if you want to have continuum as well. So it's very flexible. Here is just a screenshot of how one of those setups may look like. Just to finish, I would like to tell you that there is this other document, which is the Observing with ALMA primer, where you can go through. You can read about several science cases that have been successfully observed with ALMA. If you would like to have some ideas or inspiration of what kind of science you can do with ALMA, you can check this document, and then, well, you can have some inspiration. The other thing I wanted to tell you is that ALMA also now has this agreement with other observatories, particularly James WST, the JWST, the VLA, and the VLT, to carry out observations together with those other observatories. There are some limited number of hours, but in principle, you don't need to submit different proposals to both observatories, but you can just submit only one proposal to both observatories. And you mentioned that it is a joint proposal, and then you can actually, well, if you make a science case compelling enough, then you would get the time for carrying out this kind of observations. Just the final thing, I would like just to mention very quickly something about the data products. The data products, of course, they are accessed through the ALMA Science Archive. Then you have to have, of course, your account. Then you search for your project or for the source that you observe and so on. You will access the products. In this case, there will be fixed files, and or there would be images and cubes. And then nowadays, the archive has some links that on the right here that give you access to this viewer, so-called Carta. And then if you click in one of those, you don't even need to download the data. You can actually explore the data online using this Carta, and then you can get moment maps, you can get spectra, you can do a lot of analysis online without actually having to download your data. So this is very, very handy. Of course, there's also the raw data in the archive that you can always download. You can and then also you can download the calibration scripts, and then with those scripts, then you can recalibrate your data, and then you can get your calibrated data and redo images as you like and so on. Other way of doing this is actually contacting ESO, and then they would actually deliver calibrated data for you if you don't want to calibrate the data yourself. So then, well, here, as I mentioned before, that ALMA provides this calibrated data. And like I said, array combination products not provided, but we can help you with that. So then how to get ALMA data? Well, either you can submit a proposal and get ALMA observations and then data, or you can actually mine the archive, which now it's full with, it has lots and lots of data. If you go there, you search for all kinds of things. Nowadays, more and more papers are being published with data that was retrieved from the archive, that was mined from the archive. Lots of very interesting results that had been published using archival data. So that is another way if you do not manage to get time in your proposal, and if it is within the scope of your purposes, the data that already exists in the archive, I think it's I would encourage people to actually also check the archive, because there is a lot of things in there. And for support, if you would like to know, how to explore more the archive, or if you find some data in the archive that you don't quite understand, then there's always the ArcNodes that here to support you. Particularly we here at the Nordic ArcNode in Unsala, we can support you with that. Here where you can even visit us, you can even stay here with us. We can do a face-to-face and work with you. And well, this is us who are here to support you. And yeah, well, I think that's like a very quick general overview on the telescope. And yeah, good luck with the proposals. Thank you.